Hello everyone, welcome to the fourth lesson on steering clear of DS traps. Now, data sufficiency is a type of question that is tested in the quant section, which is kind of a nightmare for a lot of students. They tend to face a lot of problem and they keep on falling for the typical traps that are set in the exam. And GMAT the exam makers, they do know that DS is something which a lot of students find tricky, and most of the mistakes that people end up making is in this part only. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to very quickly discuss some of the frequently tested traps on the exam. I'm going to take very simple examples and explain what is C trap, D trap, E trap, so that you understand what are these and how you can avoid them. Okay. Once again, the first portion of this video where I'm going to discuss this trap is just making you aware of them. Okay, so I'm not going to discuss the solutions in detail, just to be very clear. So first of all, let me tell you that people fall into DS traps because of these three main reasons. Lack of pre-analysis, that is, once they read the question, they directly jump into these statements without trying to figure out what exactly are they looking for. The second kind of mistake is that they make a lot of assumptions, and this is something that I've discussed in the previous lessons. So if you haven't gone through them, I would strongly suggest that you go through them once and understand what do I mean by that. And the third and the most basic and the obvious thing is the lack of conceptual knowledge. So if there's lack of conceptual clarity, then there's a high chance that you would not understand what is the question actually asking you to find out, and you'll end up making a mistake. Okay, so let me talk about the first kind of trap, which is the C trap. Okay, and I'm going to take a very simple question to help you understand that. So say if this is a kind of question which is given, right? If x and y are positive integers, what is the value of x? Now, what do you think is the answer? If you do not do any pre-analysis, if you just look at the question and if we don't even read it properly, we may think, hey, we need the value of x. There are two statements, two variables, two equations, so most probably I need to combine both of them to get my answer, right? And there's a high chance that you'll end up marking the answer as C, which is incorrect. Okay, and what was your thought process? Your thought process was there are two statements with two variables, and so I need both of them to get my answer. And GMAT knows that a lot of students they want to take shortcuts. They want to just very quickly get the answer, and a lot of people fall for these kind of traps, which is incorrect. Now let me tell you how you should have approached it very briefly. Ideally, you should ask yourself before moving to any statements, do some pre-analysis. Ask yourself, what do we know about x and y? If you ask yourself that, you'll focus on the very important information that is given here, which is that x and y are positive integers. Okay, so there's a constraint on these variables. They have to be positive, they have to be greater than 0, so they can take values such as 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. Now, when you're analyzing this statement, you should just focus on only the first statement and do not look at both these statements together. Now, if you look at the first statement and if you keep the constraint in mind that they are positive integers, and if you do a bit of analysis, you'll realize that there's only one possible case, that is x is 3 and y is 1. Apart from that, there are no other values which will satisfy this given equation. So I hope you can understand that statement 1 is actually sufficient to answer the question. In the same way, if you go to the second statement, analyze it briefly, you'll realize that only when x is 3, y is 1, do we get 5x plus 8y is equal to 23. Now, how was I able to get the answer? I was able to get the answer because I was focusing on what is given in the question. I made sure that I used that information to get my answer and not just make certain assumptions such as there are two variables, so I need two equations to solve the question. Thus, in this case, the answer is actually D and not C. So I hope you understand why you fall for a C trap. You fall for a C trap because you look at these statements, you do very little pre-analysis, or in fact no pre-analysis at all. You're focusing on making you're making some assumptions which are not needed, such as two variables, two equations, and that is why you're falling for the trap. So make sure that you don't keep any pre-assumptions as such while solving the question. Okay, now let's talk about E trap. Now, let me take again an example to help you explain. Say this is a question, A is what percentage greater than B. Now, you should ask yourself, what do we need to find out, right? What do we need to find out the percentage? And say if you have a little bit of conceptual knowledge, then you'll say, okay, I can find out the percentage by doing A minus B by B times 100, and I'll get my answer. Okay. But if you don't do any other pre-analysis, and if there's still a little bit of conceptual lack of conceptual knowledge, some shakiness, then you may end up making an inference that, okay, I need the percentage. There are again two variables, a minus b by b, so I need both these statements to get my answer. Both the variables, in fact, really sorry, you will need both the variables a, b to get the answer. That's what you'll think. Then you look at the first statement, you'll say, hey, it's a ratio. I cannot get the actual value, so this must be insufficient. Then you look at the second statement, you'll say a minus b greater than 30. I don't think so. It's an inequality, not possible. Even if I combine both of them, I don't see us finding out the value of a and b. In that case, you may end up marking the answer as e, which again is incorrect. Now, why did you fall for that trap? You fell for the trap because of two main reasons. One is lack of pre-analysis, proper pre-analysis, and second is there's still some lack of conceptual knowledge. Now, why I'm saying this is because if you would have taken there are two ways to actually solve it. One is you could have simply broken this down. A minus b by b can be written as a by b minus 1 times 100. Okay, the moment you write it like this, you'll know that, okay, one way to get the answer is to actually find out a and b. But the other way, which is also possible, is if I know the ratio or if I know what is a by b, that's enough for me to get my answer. But the moment you make this inference, you'll know that statement 1 is sufficient, because a is to b, if it is 3 is to 2, that means a by b is 3 by 2. And that will help you get your answer. And obviously the second statement is not sufficient, so the correct answer actually is a. So here also you did not do proper p-analysis. In fact, you do not even try to put the ratio in this substitute these ratios in this percentages. So you're not drawing the right inferences here out here. And notice, even if you'd have taken 3x 2x and placed it here, you would have still got the answer. So you're not actually making any effort to write down the equations and putting it, substituting it in this equation to get to see if you can get the answer or not. And that will lead you to E-trap. C and E-trap are some of the most common trap tested, and people make mistakes because of either lack of pre-analysis or lack of conceptual knowledge. Now, other traps that are tested, and these are sometimes tested, not that frequent, is something called D-trap. Now, here's the question again: what is the value of the integer x? And it's given that x, and it's there are two statements: x cube is equal to 8 and x square is equal to 4. Now, what do you think will be the answer in this case? Now, if you have some lack of conceptual clarity, you may end up doing like this. Okay, if x cube is equal to 8, then x must be 2. So statement 1 is sufficient. If x is equal to 4, in a hurry you may say that x is equal to 2 here also, and you may end up marking the answer as D. The reason people mark D, and again this is a very basic example, there are a lot of complicated examples also, but one common pattern that I've seen here in GMAT questions is that while setting up D-trap, they make sure that both these statements look really similar, very close to each other, so that what happens is if you get an answer from the first statement, or you get really biased and you think that if, hey, this also, the second also looks similar to the first one, so even this must be sufficient, and you end up marking the answer as D. So here they're playing with your mind, and they're making sure that you get answer from one of them and make a decision that even the other is sufficient because they are similar looking, same. But however, if you do the proper analysis, if you have conceptual clarity, if you have good conceptual clarity, you'll know that if x is equal to 4, then that means x is plus 2 or minus 2. And since you're looking for the value of x, you're not getting a unique value. So obviously statement 2 is not sufficient, statement 1 is, so the answer has to be A. So keep in mind, whenever you see two similar statements, and if you're getting the answer from one of them, don't jump to the conclusion that the second statement will also be sufficient. Try it out properly and then only come to a conclusion. The last kind of trap is a B trap. Now this is a trap where one of these statements look very easy to solve, and it feels that might be the answer, or very obvious. Okay, and that looks the same way because maybe while analyzing the question stem you made certain mistakes, or maybe the statements are very easy to solve and you end up thinking that has to be the answer. Like this is one typical case where incorrect pre-analysis or lack of conceptual knowledge will make you fall for the trap. Now I need to find out if PQ is greater than PR or not. Okay, so ideally most students, what they do is they look at this and they cancel out P, both sides, and they say, okay, if they're saying if PQ is greater than PR, then ultimately I'm looking for Q is greater than R. This is the only thing that I need to check. Now those of you who do this, you see that then you need to find this. You look at these statements, you see first statement is Q is greater than R. See, they're biasing your decision because you made a wrong pre-analysis and you end up marking A as the answer. So you fell for the A trap because you did an incorrect analysis here. Now you might ask, how is this incorrect? Well, the reason is you cannot cancel out P like this, especially when there's an inequality. You need to take the whole term this side, the other side, and write it in this way. Take P common, write it in this way, and then infer that okay, they're a product of two numbers, and they will be greater than 0 when either P, when both P is greater than 0 and Q minus R is greater than 0, which is Q greater than R. Only when both of them are greater than 0, then can I say that PQ is greater than PR. Now you're cancelling here. The mistake is you don't know what P is, right? P could be 0. If P becomes 0, then both sides will become equal, right? So cancelling here is very dangerous without knowing the nature of P, without knowing the nature of the variable. So in this case, when I take both these statements, when I know P is greater than 0 and Q is greater than R, then only will I be able to get the answer. So the correct answer in this case is option C. So I hope this is perfectly clear how you need to solve questions, how lack of proper pre-analysis or certain assumptions in the starting can lead you to make mistakes. And if you notice one thing, most of the mistakes are because you're jumping to conclusions or your conceptual knowledge is not that great. So you need to figure out what is actually causing the problem and fix it. So if it's a lack of conceptual knowledge, you need to, so for example, in this case, if you make a mistake here, it clearly shows that you need to go and revisit inequalities and study it. Okay. If you're making mistake in this kind of question, that means you need to go through experiments and solve it, learn it, and then try solving questions like these. Now, as usual, I usually take one question and try and solve it fully to show you what are the various ways in one falls for a trap. So I'm going to do that once again. I'm going to take one question, full length question. I'll once again show you how students think, and this is something which I'll solve in a very elaborate manner. I'll show how students make mistake, and I'll show you very elaborately how you should solve it. Okay, and keep in mind, as I've told you before, you need a solid conceptual knowledge, and we have to do pre-analysis, proper pre-analysis to get the answer. So you can pause the video if you want to look at the question stem and go through it. If you want to try it out also, and then you can resume to see the solution. So in this question, it's given that the price of an electronic watch which was launched in 2000 was decreasing year on year. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are first of all going to jot down the information that is given. There's a watch whose price is decreasing, and it first decreased by X% in 2001, and then it decreased by Y% in 2002. And I need to find out what is the overall percentage change or percentage decrease in the price of the watch. Okay, now after reading this question stem, a lot of students may wonder that okay, there are two variables X and Y. The price isn't mentioned, so do we really need the price of the car? Okay, that's a question that you might have in mind, and some of you may think yes, some of you may say no. But if you're thinking yes, then let me tell you now beforehand only that you are incorrect. Okay, and some of you who simply say yes without even doing any pre-analysis is making this mistake. Okay, because you think price is important, and that is why you say that yes, we need the price of the car, and you go with that assumption in your mind. So you can see how a student falls into a trap by just making assumptions and not even trying it out. So let's say we make all these assumptions as a student. We think that we have X%, Y%, and we may or may not need the price of the price. Okay. Now, as a student, there are three types of mistakes which I've seen one can make here. Okay. A student may, if their conceptual knowledge is not very good, he may think, okay, X% decrease, Y% decrease. If I want the overall percentage change, I need just X% plus Y%. If I add both the percentages, I'll know what is the overall decrease. Now, if you're someone like that who thought like that, then you really need to review percentages, go through it, understand it in a better way, because this is not the correct inference. Okay. Another possible inference is those who think that they need the price of the car. They may think in this way, okay, I need X, I need Y, and I need P. I need all three to get the answer. Once again, you need to review percentages and stop making assumptions, because you're still making a mistake. There could be a few people who are slightly better in percentages, and they may realize, okay, 2 percentages being given, overall percentages being asked, so we don't need the value of P. And if they are able to do this, then they have done they are slightly better than the first two type of students, but still they are not doing the full analysis. So there's still some mistake that they are making. Okay, now if somebody makes the first possible inference that overall change is X% plus Y%, if somebody thinks in that way, how will he analyze the statements? He'll go look at the first statement. He'll see it's given X% plus Y% is 50. He'll say, yay, that's given here, so this must be sufficient. So he'll consider statement 1 as sufficient. Okay, he'll look at the second statement. It will look weird to him. It will say, okay, what is this? I don't think it's X plus Y, so let me ignore it. And again, you cannot find X plus Y from here also, so you may ignore it in that way. And you may mark the answer as A, which is incorrect. And this is the typical question which is full of trap. So if you're making this kind of inferences, you're falling for the A trap. Okay, you fell for the A trap, you marked A, and that's incorrect. Now, some of you who thought that X, Y, P, both are X, Y, P, all three are important, then you look at the first statement, you'll say, hey, I don't know the value of P, so not sufficient. Once again, I don't know the value of P, not sufficient. So let me mark the answer as E, because I still don't know P. And since you're fixated on the price of the electronic watch, and so you don't have it, you'll very quickly jump to the conclusion that the answer is E. You'll spend 30-45 seconds on a very important question and end up marking the wrong answer. Obviously, so you're falling for the E trap in this case. Now, people who are fall in the third category, where you're just thinking that you need X and Y, what you're going to do is, you know that you need both X and Y individually to find the answer. So you look at the first statement, you'll say this is not sufficient. You look at the second statement, you'll again say, hey, I need both X and Y, this is not sufficient. You'll combine both of them and you'll say, okay, two variables, two equations, so we can find X and Y. So let's mark the answer as C. And let me tell you, if you're thinking this way, then you fell for the C trap. So you can see one particular question, three different kind of traps. A trap was set up for a lot of people who are really weak in percentages. E trap set up for people who jump to conclusions and mark very quickly. And C trap for people who are slightly good in percentage. They have certain conceptual knowledge, but just because they did not do the analysis, they'll end up marking the incorrect answer. Now let me tell you quickly how to solve this. So once again, let me write down the information that we already know. These are the information that we know. Ideally, you should be able to ask this question, and you should be able to figure out that you don't need the price of the car. But it's quite possible that without any pre-analysis, you may not be able to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the price of the car as P. I'm going to assume that, hey, I need P. I'll start off with an open mind and say, let's take P and see what happens. So if the price in the car is a price of the watch is P, then next year, that is in 2001, if it's decreasing by X%, then the value will become P times 1 minus X by 100, right? Again, if those of you are not able to comprehend this, you need to go through percentages right away, because this is the very basics of percentages, of percentage increase, percentage decrease. In the second year, if the price decreases again, then it becomes P times 1 minus X by 100 times 1 minus Y by 100. Okay, so this is the final value at the end of in the year 2002. Now, when you're finding the percentage change, what do? And there's a decrease here. So you take the initial value, you subtract the final value and divide by P, right? So P minus the final value that you have here divided by P times 100. So say even if you're not being able to answer this, after looking at this expression, you should be able to understand that the P from the numerator and the denominator will get cancelled out. And if you do some manipulation, solve it out, you'll see that ultimately you'll be left with just this expression. P gets cancelled out, and whatever is left is, after simplification, gives you X plus Y minus X times Y by 100. So this is what you need to find out. Okay, this is what you need to keep in mind, that this is what is required. Now you can make certain inferences like, okay, to find this, either I need the value of this expression, or I need the individual value of X and Y, or I need X plus Y and X times Y. If I have either of these any of these things, I'll be able to get my answer. Okay, so with this in mind, let's look at the first statement. First statement is X% plus Y% is 50. Now, I know my overall percentage change is this. I know X plus Y is 50, so that is the max that I can do here. I can put 50 here, but I don't know X times Y. So obviously statement 1 is not sufficient, so your answer cannot be A or D. Now, if you look at the second statement is this, and you should, if you have this expression with you, you should be able to identify that if I take y and x times y to the left hand side and bring 44 to the other side, you'll get exactly the same expression that you're looking for. Notice? So you can say that your overall percentage change is equal to 44%. So there's a 44% decrease in the price of the watch. And hence, second statement is sufficient and the correct answer is B. So I hope you can understand why having a strong conceptual knowledge, a proper conceptual knowledge is very important, because a lack of conceptual knowledge also leads you to make a lot of assumptions which are totally incorrect. Okay, there is another shorter way to solve this question. There's a shortcut formula also, but again, I'm not going to discuss. The purpose of here is not to discuss that, so I'm not going into it. But the idea here is that you should be able, even if you don't know the shortcut, if your knowledge is good, you will be able to solve the question. So that's the first learning and takeaway. It will help you avoid in traps. So solidify your basics, and this will help you avoid assumptions. And one more important thing is sometimes a lot of statements seems obvious, like I told you about D traps and C traps, where it looks, hey, both of the statements are sufficient, or both of them look the same, so the answer has to be D. Always keep in mind that if it's looking so obvious, it is not. Double check and then only mark your answer. Okay, so that's it from my side. I hope you found this useful. Once again, whatever I've discussed here, I'm going to give you 2 questions on that. Try it out, and I hope you'll be able to apply all your learnings that you gained from this lesson. All the best, guys.